All right. Well, thank you, Erin, for the lovely introduction and for the opportunity today. My name is Erin Murray. I'm the Housing and Homeless Program Manager with Butte County Department of Employment and Social Services, also referred to as DES. Um, I wanted to take the opportunity today to share kind of some unexpected events and how we bounced back for our ERF to our project. So first, just wanted to give you some insight on who the housing and homeless team within DES is. Um, we are a team of about 18 people within the Department of Employment and Social Services that focuses specifically on housing related needs in the community. We're also the lead agency, collaborative applicant, and HMIS lead for our local continuum of care. We operate housing and homelessness related grants from many entities, including Housing and Community Development, Cal ICH, HUD, and local grants we receive from behavioral health and some local jurisdictions as well. We also operate a housing navigation center, which is open to the public and has been for over a year now. We provide resources and referrals related to homelessness and housing instability. We also use it as a hub for outreach with our partnerships through behavioral health, code enforcement, and the Sheriff's Department. So our ERF2R budget was originally for just over $1 million, and the intent was to move folks from 2 identified encampments directly from their location at the encampments into permanent housing. The timing of this grant allowed us to coordinate with a housing developer that was in the process of constructing units with project-based vouchers dedicated to those experiencing homelessness. And through this partnership, we're able to prioritize those on coordinated entry that were residing at the 2 identified encampments. So this location, referred to as Prospect View, had 24 project-based vouchers, the brand new complex that was slated to open right when we were contracting for this grant so that we could coordinate with the residents of the identified encampments to move them straight into permanent housing. Instead of maybe a more transitional model into interim housing or any other pathways. This grant also allowed us to set aside funds for rental subsidies to those that either didn't qualify for Prospect View with the project-based vouchers or that decided that was not going to be a good fit for them. And this project has continued case management provided through DES and a third-party subcontracted agency, depending on whether folks were moving into a Prospect View with the vouchers or into alternative permanent housing. And throughout this process, we've been partnering with county code enforcement. We also partner with the Sheriff's Department and behavioral health. So here's our first encampment. It is located in South Oroville. It's referred to as Church in the Barn. It is a relatively large property, I want to say a couple acres, that has multiple buildings, but many of which had been red tagged by code enforcement. So they were unsafe for habitation. And there was a community of folks that lived there for a very long time. They developed a really close, tight-knit group. They had regular church services on site. They were able to park vehicles for people to live in. They had a horse pen, chickens, a worm farm. Many people had been there for many years, and they, like I said, became really close-knit. And were often people that really had nowhere else to go. Either they had no other resources to rely on, or maybe were facing other barriers such as a 290 status or evictions and that sort of thing. So it became this really neat community of people. And the second encampment that we identified is referred to as the Gridley encampment. It is actually just south of the Church in the Barn location outside of Gridley. It's behind a cemetery, and it was many acres of agricultural land that had fallen into disrepair, had been abandoned long ago. And it included abandoned vehicles and old RVs, tents, and structures. There were a few communities that ended up developing within this encampment, but unfortunately, because of the disuse, it regularly was threatened by wildfire and at least annually did have several fires. There were two main groups that kind of developed within this encampment. One was gang affiliated, and the other was folks that were on disability or Social Security retirement and simply didn't have enough funds to rent anywhere, or maybe had other barriers in addition to that. All right, so when we started our application process, we got our plan together, we coordinated with the residents of the encampments to see what they wanted this process to look like, if there was interest in relocating to Orville in the Prospect View units. And we had this great plan of how this timeline was going to work, what we were going to do. And then we had a few wrenches thrown into our plan. First, there were several electrical fires at the Church in the Barn encampment, and the buildings that had previously been red tagged had then all been destroyed by these fires. And eventually, code enforcement came in and raised the property. Many people left the encampment. Some did stay behind, but coordinating with and continuing to stay in contact with people that had previously resided there became much more challenging. And the second thing that occurred was that at the request of the property owners, the Gridley encampment was cleared out and all people residing there were removed. This also, for the same reason as Church in the Barn, was quite a difficulty on the team in the process, because coordination and communication with people that were residing at that location became much more difficult. And then the last kind of big hurdle that happened all about the same time, the Prospect View Apartments was delayed by about 10 months. As I had stated, it was a brand new construction project, base vouchers. It was supposed to be opening about when this project was going to kick off, and a lot of delays occurred, causing it to not open in time. And I really appreciated the way it was phrased earlier. Was it failing forward? Essentially, our budget did not have room for interim housing. We were so confident in our timeline and that we were going to be able to move people straight into permanent housing. We did not have funds for interim housing. However, we were able to overcome that. All of these incidents through several different stages here. Although the sheriff's department was moving folks out of the Gridley encampment, we do have a long-standing partnership with them, and they connected with us, and our housing navigation team was able to be on site at the Gridley encampment when people were being removed. We were able to help offer resources, get folks into hotels for interim housing, and help them move some of their items. Our outreach and housing navigation team was also able to locate individuals that left Church in the Barn and went to a nearby encampment. So although it did take some time to connect with the people that were residing at Church in the Barn, our outreach team in coordination with code enforcement in various jurisdictions was able to find people. So we were able to pick up kind of where the process left off of getting people into Prospect View and the permanent housing. As I stated, the team was able to help gather belongings and transport everyone to a hotel. And the only reason we were able to do that was because of an urgent budget revision that we submitted to Cal ICH to shift funds in order to provide that interim housing. If it wasn't for the very quick responsiveness of Cal ICH, we would not have been able to provide that option. And it certainly would have been more of a struggle. A lot of people did take us up on the opportunity to go to a hotel, which is allowing that case management and paperwork process of getting people into permanent housing much easier. in addition to the obvious benefits of shelter. We also partnered with our lovely ERFTA, which kind of helped us stay on track or kind of shift our timeline to keep the integrity of the process and the program, and kind of regain some hope. I personally was, although, we always push on, it was a little bit of a blow to me and this wonderful idea that we had that just quite didn't work out. So what's going on currently with our project? We have our 24 project-based voucher units that will be ready for move-in on February 5th. We are so excited that throughout the hurdles that we have seen with this project, that we are so close to finally moving people in from the 2 identified encampments into brand new units that are fully furnished and also include basic household items, toilet paper, paper towels, coffee pots, just kind of basic necessities that so many people take for granted or don't have the opportunity to purchase for themselves. We're able to continue case management and provide medium-term rental subsidies for some of the folks that we've been able to house elsewhere outside of the Prospect View. And we're continuing our outreach to connect with people that were either displaced from the 2 encampments or have since returned, and we'll be continuing kind of in that loop of reaching out to people as we go on throughout this process. And I believe that is my last slide.
Thanks so much, Erin. That was great. Here, why don't I share my screen again? So, like I said, we are going to, we'd love if you would submit questions in the chat, and we will keep track of those and make sure that we get to them during our Q&A at the end. Let's take 2 minutes and see if any questions come through in the chat. I know we had a couple that have come through.
Would you like me to wait until the end to answer questions, or I can go ahead and jump in on the ones that are in there?
Yeah, why don't you jump in on the ones that are in there? I think we have 2 minutes for this. Yeah, and then if any,
Okay.
yeah, maybe we'll move on in a couple minutes and we'll get to the ones that you didn't get to at the end.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So much,
Well, thank
Erin.
you for the opportunity and for the questions. The first one that I see anyway is how many people lived in the 2 encampments. Combined, it was about 60 people. It did fluctuate here and there based on weather and other things going on, but it was about 60 people. How long was hotel sheltering offered for those not moving into the housing project? Will they be staying in the hotels until other housing is found? Hotel sheltering does not have an end date on it at this point. We're keeping people sheltered until either these project-based voucher units are open or until we find other permanent housing for them. So answer to the first question is indefinitely. And the answer to the second question is yes, if they're not going to the housing project, they will be able to continue staying in the hotel until we find other permanent housing. How are you handling case management for residents in hotels, since this looks different from the original plan to work with folks in the encampments? Absolutely, we did have to shift our tactics. Going out to where somebody feels comfortable in their home and their, where they've been located for years, versus approaching people in hotels has caused us to shift our approach a little bit. As for in depth on how that looked, unfortunately, I don't have one of our case managers on the call with me, but I mean, essentially, we had to kind of start building rapport over again and connecting with people in a different way, since now they're in a location they're not as comfortable with in the hotels, and in a city that they were not previously residing in as well.